I found it's a part of my nature, my kind of worldview. I am satisfied when I'm bringing something new that was not done before. I believe this is a part of true musicianship, like for any composer, any conductor, you know, any good musician, that you would like not only to recreate something that was already been done 100 different times, but you want to bring something unique. Like, what is Maxim Kuzin about? Well, you know, first of all, always special talent. It sounds like amazing for people who are probably non-musicians, but musicians usually famous names, they're always special. So whenever you are young and you think you have something, you have a good voice. I had a good voice, and it was natural for me. But you know, for books, let's say, or for the history, it's usually something that people can say, oh, this man was born to be a musician, you know. So I believe it's like very rare people, really geniuses like Beethoven, like Mozart, you know, like some other big names. For me, it was more a thing that I was endowed with some special thing. But it was not that I, from the early age, I associated myself with being a musician in the future. It just came this way, naturally. So, but I realized the potential probably that I have, or I have, later in my life when I was actually graduating from my first degree in choral conducting. And then at that time I thought, okay, so this is going to be my profession for the future. You know, what am I going to do? Am I kind of completely satisfied? And then when I entered my second degree, the orchestral conducting field, that was something that I really started to love. You know, and music, if you're a musician, you need to love your profession, I believe, to be successful. You cannot do it as a type of business thing, you know, like, oh, this is my business, but then there is my life. Because especially for conductors, this is, I would say, this is a way of life, because you constantly have scores that you're studying, that you're preparing for the future. You're always in some kind of search, and it cannot be like 9 to 6 thing, you know, or business approach. So it's always evolving. Historically, unfortunately, until nowadays, people know more Russian music, and people associate all types of all nationalities that surround Russia as a part of Russian culture. But in fact, it is not always the right approach. There is Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian music, which actually penetrated the Russian music a lot through Tchaikovsky, through some Rachmaninoff's melodies, and many other composers. And the names, Ukrainian music started with a name called, the composer called Mykola Lysenko. And I'm very proud that right now, here at UCLA, in 2 weeks, on December 6th, I will conduct UCLA Symphony in overture of Mykola Lysenko called to the opera Taras Bulba. And this is a big piece. It's 5-minute piece, but it's big in terms of the sense that is put in it. After Lysenko, there came a succession of composers with names such as Levko Revutsky, Boris Latoshinsky, some choral composers like Vedel, Berezovsky, Bortnyansky. They all were, not all, but some of them were studying abroad in Italy, in Germany, in Austria. So they were part of European culture already. And what they brought back is something that unfortunately Western music is not completely aware of. But symphonies by Revutsky and Baletyshinsky, those are really great masterpieces of music, such as, you know, music of Tchaikovsky and other national composers of other countries. So as conductor, being here in US as a young conductor, I feel part of my responsibility is to bring, you know, that, let's say, Ukrainian flavor, Ukrainian taste, Ukrainian blend of music into this part of the world. And of course I will try to program some of this music as opportunities arise here in US, for people to start knowing that there is something besides just Russian music from the Eastern Europe. So when I was still in Ukraine, I started a project. I was still a student, the last year student, and my orchestral degree. So we did first premiere production of Stravinsky's stage music, Opera Mavra, and stage piece called Renard, for 4 singers, and we brought four dancers as well. And we commissioned a piece that would connect those 2 Stravinsky's music from a contemporary Ukrainian young composer. And we did that production, and I actually created the music theater. It was called Youth Music Theater Maxima, and that was back in 2002, 2004. And after that, as opportunity arrived when I was music director at the Kryvyi Rog Music Theater, I always tried to do something for that city that was not done there. We started doing New Year's concerts, you know, and stuff like this. So here in US, in my new position at the Orange Coast College Symphony, next concert will be actually the concert of the video game music. It's something relatively new, but you know, this type of music gathers like full concert halls everywhere that people program it. And I think it's really interesting to find some kind of jams that are spread. I'm not, you know, video game player. No, but I'm just interested in finding something that in that genre, because there are some let's say big names composing for the computer games, and it's contemporary. It brings something of this day. And I like an idea probably that if greatest composers such as Mozart, Beethoven would live in our days, maybe they would have a try on something like that. If somebody would commission, you know, from Beethoven to write a music for a computer game, you know, I think that he might give it a try, and who knows what would it be. So maybe we can find something like that. Although honestly, I don't think that there is something existing to that extent, the music of that quality. But anyway, there are some pretty interesting stuff there. So it's, I believe, as every artist, you need to be current. You know, you need to find something that is new, something, and it's always evolving. So I can't say what would it be, you know, tomorrow. I have some projects in mind that were not done before. There is a ballet project that I'm trying to put into life, which is very unique. But I prefer sometimes not to talk about things that haven't happened yet. So let's wait a little bit. well, coming from Eastern Europe, you know, I am, as Ukrainian, I'm considering myself a part of Eastern, Western European culture, because technically the Ukraine is in the middle of the Europe, of the continent, you know. When I'm programming, and the fact, of course, that classical music is predominantly Western European, you know, like all big composers came from Germany and that part of the world, France, of course, and other countries, Hungary. So when I'm programming something here, it's always a choice of, you have in mind American music, you always have in mind European music. I always have in mind Eastern European music. So when I programmed last concert that you attended at OCC, Orange Coast College, it was Brahms, Beethoven, and Fauré, and you know the music there is always, at that time, it always was kind of, let's say, I don't know how to word it, but interrelation of different cultures, because of the fact that composers traveled, virtuoso, soloists travel, and they all, it was not like today that we have all the means of communication. You had to come to a certain place to actually hear music live. It's very different from what we have now. So the fact that, of course, European music is always in my mind, Russian music always in my mind, despite the fact what's happening now between Ukraine and Russia. But it's a hard question and tragic story. But still, the music of Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff, those one of my, or couple of my most favorite composers. Yeah.
Kind of restart your career here?
It was under the circumstances that in 2014 Russian aggression happened into Ukraine, military aggression, and that was unheard of, and it was really shocking and is still shocking to me personally and to my family, and of course to many Ukrainians, that such a thing between two nations that used to be very friendly, and we are all so much connected. We all have relatives living in Russia. We all have relatives living in the Russian occupied Ukrainian territories, such as Eastern Ukraine, such as Crimea. And when that aggression happened, it was a big shock. And so there were some few days where we thought that a big war can actually splash, you know, burst. As musician, it is hard, and as a Baha'i, as religious, my religious beliefs, it is a little bit hard for me to imagine that I can take a gun, you know, and go fight and kill people because of the fact that I am defending my territory. So I probably was not prepared to something like that at that particular moment, you know. It's now I'm kind of more with it, and I'm thinking about it, and I know some composers, some people who fought actually during their lifetimes and then continued their career. Some were killed, unfortunately. But so we decided, I have a brother in Philadelphia with his family, so we wanted to move, to kind of leave Kiev in order to stay with my brother, to visit him and to see where it all goes to, you know. And we thought maybe things will calm down a little bit in a week or so, and then when we came here, unfortunately things were developing the way that it has become worse and worse, and much more difficult in terms of the life, like a steady life that people had, you know. And we had to take this hard decision for me to quit 2 jobs there in Ukraine and start thinking about, okay, what we can do here in the United States. And I'm very fortunate, although it was not easy thing, that in 3.5 years sitting now talking to you, I can say that, you know, my career goes kind of back to the position that I have worked here already, although I'm still finishing my doctoral degree at UCLA. And I hope that this perspective that I'm getting here in US, in this system, musical system, that it will be relative to Ukraine if I would like at any point in my life come back, or it can be relevant, of course, I am more prepared to have successful career here and in Western Europe as well.
How they appreciate classical music?
It's an extremely interesting question. Somewhat more than one-dimensional. I might say that, you know, in Eastern Europe, the audiences are a little bit warmer. Kind of, they express their gratitude in some more open way. But here there is a much more appreciation of classical music than in I find in Ukraine, Russia, you know, some other parts of that territory. Of course, I'm not touching on the Western European countries, you know, like Germany in particular, and Austria, and some other. But here, you know, with the presence of so many amateur orchestras, so many youth orchestras, all kinds of semi-professional groups that you have, the palette of the classical orchestral music is much kind of wider, you know, much richer, let's say. And I would say that among the general public, the appreciation of the classical music is more than in Ukraine, where I came from. So I kind of like both, let's say, audiences, because here the fact that person is coming to the concert make that person is already so excited, you know, that it brings some kind of special atmosphere as well. But in Ukraine, you might find some more refined, let's say, audience, people who know music and who goes to concerts and who has somewhat deeper maybe understanding of classical music, but it's narrower, kind of, you know, the narrower size of the audiences in general. I believe in such a thing that despite the fact where we live, we always live in our own world. Los Angeles is very big. So, and although I'm here, and of course I'm liking the fact there are so many artists, artistic life is so diverse here. And the fact that Los Angeles Philharmonic is right now the most paid and probably the strongest, the most supported orchestra in US in general, it brings a feeling that it's a good place to be, and I'm happy that I have a bounty to study at UCLA this Hope Arbelt School of Music. Great place with amazing faculty, with amazingly bright, talented students that surround me here, and I feel happy enough to be in that atmosphere. Yeah.
Is there anything?
This is extremely interesting question for me to myself, and thank you for asking that, because never before I've been to United States, Canada, abroad in Europe many times, and I always wanted to come back to Ukraine. I had chances to be here much earlier, but I felt some kind of mission being in Ukraine. I don't know, it's something that I cannot fully understand. It just felt like that I have to come back, and it motivated me more than to stay in this part of the world. This time, once again, coming back to your question, I feel that I did something important in Ukraine, and the next path probably for me more like, somewhere here or in Western Europe.